Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. The 2023 Formula E season has come to a close, but that doesn't mean it is too late to do some Formula E videos. So let's look at some Formula E conspiracies. I could do a video on why Lucas Di Grassi was disqualified for wearing the wrong underpants. Yes, it happened. Or maybe the Robo Race series, the first AI motor racing series, and why it died a death. But I think the reason is obvious.
Providing us with an entertaining sport to watch, but also providing us with real-world benefits. Oh no, and the start has not gone to plan.
So let's just look at Formula E's difficult relationships with some of the cities it has raced in, specifically the Battersea Park track in London, Montreal and Jakarta. A fun look into the world of putting together a Formula E race and what a city has to put up with in getting Formula E to visit and keeping them there. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and let's jump right into the video. So first up on the chopping block is Jakarta, who despite the story I'm about to weave, still remains on the Formula E calendar and will be back again in 2024. The reason Formula E arrived in Indonesia was all down to Governor Anies Baswedan. Mr. Anies was a Conservative minister who won the 2017 Jakarta governorship. There were a few controversies during his tenure, a little demolishing of slums here and a little financial mismanagement there, nothing too surprising really. He did work on congestion issues and acted quickly to the COVID crisis. But his story with Formula E is a little complicated and has led to him being brought before the Corruption Eradication Commission, which sounds like the bad guys from a comic book movie. The issues came along 2 points. Firstly, that he signed a contract with Formula E that was set to run after his term in office, which is not allowed. Sounds a little shady, but not the worst crime in the history of forever. But he did take out a loan to pay the tender and it didn't go through the correct channels, so that was bad, I guess. Something around $12 million, which is a lot. Anies Baswedan seems to have escaped punishment and is even running for president in 2024. And the Jakarta E-Prix has been acknowledged as a success for the city, although some have said the $30 million spent on Formula E is a poor financial decision. Jakarta is staying on the calendar until 2024, and if Anies Baswedan gets elected president, maybe further into the future. President Anies could claim Formula E as the jewel in his crown. Does it actually bring any money in? Hard to say, nothing has been made clear by the city of Jakarta, and it won't be clear until they sign another contract. I guess the conspiracy is, did Anies Baswedan plan for the race to take place after his term in office? You would presume he'd have to have known, and yet he ploughed on anyway. Maybe his motivation was using it as a promotional tool for his presidential campaign. Maybe he wanted to burden his successors with an expensive electric race. Unless Anies says, we may never know. The second city we are looking at is Montreal, Canada. Montreal hosted Formula E for the final round of the 2016-17 season. Montreal Mayor Denis Coderre began talking with FIA President Jean Todt in 2014. Initially it looked like the Gilles Villeneuve circuit would be the venue for a Canadian E-Prix, but after a lot of negotiations, Montreal was selected for a street circuit. An initial 6-year contract was signed in 2016 and the race was all set to go ahead. It was a hit with drivers, with Lucas Di Grassi saying it was one of the best tracks on the calendar. Although residents were a little unhappy with the grandstands replacing sidewalks, the trouble didn't start until after the race. 4 months after the race, Denis Coderre lost the Montreal mayorship to Valérie Plante. Valérie Plante did not want Formula E to race on the streets of Montreal, and she was using it to attack the previous administration.
So when we took office, we immediately started looking into the Formula E file. What we discovered was not only troubling, it was shocking. It became pretty clear as early as May 2017 that we were heading towards a financial fiasco, a situation the previous administration was perfectly aware of. Yet, it was decided to hold 2 races instead of 1. They each cost $1 million. This is why we offered as a solution a 1-year break to clean the house, work on a better business model, and allow us to seriously study the possibility of adapting the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. The answer was a clear no. This is where we draw the line. The Formula E will not be back in Montreal in these conditions. Since we're canceling the event, we will find out how much it will cost, and that's with Montréal C'est Électrique. But what we know is whatever the cost is at this point, if we say that 30 million, from 30 to 35 million this year, and there's going to be probably similarly, probably 20 million the year after, if you add up the numbers, even though there's costs associated with the canceling the contract, I do believe it's worth it, because at this point, it doesn't pay off. It doesn't pay off, and it's a lot of money, and it just keeps on increasing, and I don't think this is the responsible thing to do.
The whole "it will cost $35 million every time the race was set to go" is very disingenuous. Ignores that Formula E will at least bring in some money, unless everyone goes to Montreal and doesn't spend anything. Also, you already have the infrastructure made from previous years, so that wouldn't be an expense. But a politician that lies is, a politician. They're very good at it. Formula E sued the city of Montreal for $33 million, but ended up settling out of court for a mere $3 million. Formula E has never returned to Canada. Valerie Plante is still mayor in 2023, whilst defeated rival Denis Coderre has a lot more controversial baggage and has now retired from politics. It does raise the question of why it wasn't just held at the Gilles Villeneuve circuit. It seems to have been an option early on in discussions, but former mayor Denis Coderre was desperate for a street circuit. Denis Coderre was warned that it was a bad, expensive idea to have the race in the city, but went ahead with it anyway. It possibly fit closer to Formula E's modus operandi at the time, and the FIA may have pulled a few strings to convince Coderre. Not that I want to suggest he was up to no good, but he has been a special advisor for the FIA since 2019. Finally, let's talk about Battersea Park, the race in London that saw the close of the first two Formula E championships. Just to be clear, now the London race has moved to the Dockland, it's a lot better. It's neat, it goes inside and outside. Battersea Park was very tight and very difficult to overtake at. It was also a Grade 2 historic landmark, which meant plunking a racetrack over it was a bit controversial. That being said, it's not the nicest park in the world anyway, and the minor disruption with the park being closed and a few changes being made here and there were hardly enough reason to protest. Unless you were the Battersea Park Formula E Action Group. The BatPag were very angry. How could they spend 10 minutes walking the dog before getting the newspaper and complaining about the immigrants all day? Well, they did what all activists do in the modern era. Made a Facebook group and started a petition. Actually, Wandsworth Council gave up very easily, making me think the race was not very easy to put together. The Dockland circuit is much better and has become Formula E's own space. I've been there when the race wasn't on, and there's hints of Formula E-ness everywhere. So BatPag gremlins slapped each other on the back after a job well done, and spent the next 4 years complaining about Wandsworth Council's attempts to make the park look exactly the same as it did before Formula E. Battersea Park is still a large open space, where there is only minimal chance of getting stabbed. It is not a park you want to be within 500 miles of when the sun goes down. Funnily enough, people are complaining the park is in a poor state of maintenance. I'd like to suggest that if the race was kept there, the money it raised could have been spent on rejuvenating the park, but then profit is not guaranteed, I guess. But as I mentioned earlier, Wandsworth Council gave up the fight pretty easily. I can find no evidence as to why, but I wonder if it was really unprofitable. The cost of organising the setup of the track and marshals and blocking traffic routes and whatnot. The Docklands is a really perfect site for Formula E. I think it's become one of the most iconic tracks on the circuit, so Battersea Park being taken off to Canada was a good thing. Whatever the conspiracy with Wandsworth Council, the BatPags got their way and could head home to take off their bobble hats and wait for the next big controversy to begin. So they were 3 conspiracy theories surrounding the troubles Formula E has found itself in within cities it has set up at its racetracks and electric cars. Did Anis Bazodin break the rules on purpose to use Formula E as part of his presidential campaign? Was Montreal forced to have a street circuit against its will by a corrupt mayor? Did Wandsworth Council know the Battersea Park track was more trouble than it was worth? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 1,000 now. Thank you to everyone for joining in and watching the video, and have a good one.